Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Mr. English Lab, the place where your English grows, one story at a time. Today, the mirror that lies. Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt not good enough? Not smart enough, not strong enough, not successful enough? I think we all have. Sometimes the mirror doesn't show who we are. It only shows who we are not. This story begins with a young man named Ethan. He lived in a small town surrounded by people who seemed happier, richer, and more talented than him. At least that's what he thought. Every morning, before he left for work, Ethan would scroll through his phone. Pictures of his old school friends, smiling, traveling, buying cars, posting promotions, filled his screen. And every picture whispered the same painful thought: they're doing better than you. He wasn't poor, he wasn't lazy, and he wasn't unkind. But still, he always felt behind. One morning, Ethan looked at himself in the mirror. He whispered quietly, "Why am I not like them?" And the mirror, in his mind, seemed to answer back, "Because you're not enough." That sentence stayed in his head like an echo. It followed him to work. It followed him to bed. And soon, it became his truth. Soft pause, narrator voice gentle and slow. Maybe you've felt this way too. Maybe you've looked at someone else and thought, they have it all. But here's the truth: comparison is a thief. It steals joy. It steals confidence. And it steals your focus from what really matters, your own growth. Ethan didn't know this yet. He was about to learn it the hard way. That morning, when he arrived at work, he saw his colleague Daniel being congratulated. Daniel had just received a big promotion, something Ethan secretly dreamed of. Everyone clapped and smiled. Ethan smiled too, but deep inside, he felt small. That evening, he went home, sat alone at his desk, and opened his laptop. He wanted to start a side project, something creative. But instead, he opened social media again. He saw more pictures, more success stories. He saw people buying houses, starting companies, traveling abroad. And suddenly, the thought came again: why am I not like them? That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, replaying every failure in his mind, every time he didn't get chosen, every mistake he'd made, every dream he had let fade away. He didn't know it yet, but he was trapped inside the comparison loop, a silent prison made of other people's lives. The next day, he went for a walk in the park to clear his head. He sat on a bench near a pond and noticed something strange. Two boys were feeding ducks. One boy threw bread far into the water. The ducks came quickly. The other boy threw it near the edge. His ducks were slower. The boy who got fewer ducks looked angry. He shouted at his friend, "You always get more ducks. It's not fair." The first boy laughed and said, "Then throw your bread farther." Ethan smiled. It was such a simple thing, but somehow it hit him. He thought, that's me. I keep watching other people's ducks. That evening, when he returned home, Ethan decided to stop scrolling. He deleted his social media apps for 1 week. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like silence after a storm. He didn't know what to do with all that empty time. So, he started writing again, something he hadn't done in years. Every night, he wrote in a small notebook, his thoughts, his fears, his dreams. And slowly, something changed. He began to see that his life wasn't bad. It was just different. He had his own path, his own speed, his own story. Still, the feeling of comparison didn't disappear overnight. It returned often, whispering, "Look at them, you're still behind." But now, Ethan had a question ready for that voice. He'd ask, behind who? On what race? After a week, Ethan met his old school friend, Sarah. She looked happy, confident, successful, at least that's what he thought. But during coffee, Sarah suddenly sighed and said, "Sometimes I look at your posts and think, wow, Ethan seems so peaceful. I wish I could be like that." Ethan was surprised. He laughed softly and said, "You wish to be like me? I've been wishing to be like you." They both laughed. Then there was silence. A deep kind of silence, the one that makes you think. Ethan realized something that day: everyone compares. Everyone feels behind. Even the people you think are ahead. And in that moment, something inside him broke free. He finally understood, you don't need to be better than others. You just need to be better than you were yesterday. So, if you ever feel small because of what others have achieved, remember Ethan's story. Remember the mirror that lies, the mirror that shows only your weakness, not your worth. And remember this truth: your value does not depend on comparison. It depends on your courage to keep growing. Stay with me. In the next part of this story, we'll see how Ethan learns to build real confidence, the kind that comes not from praise, but from purpose. Because self-confidence isn't about being better than others. It's about being kind to yourself when you feel less. The silent battle within a week had passed since Ethan deleted his social media. The first few days were strange. He felt like he had lost something noisy, something that used to fill his mind all the time. Every time he unlocked his phone, his fingers still went to the empty space where those apps used to be. But there was nothing there. Just silence. And in that silence, his thoughts became louder. He started noticing how often he compared, not just online, but everywhere. At work, he compared his ideas to others. At the gym, he compared his body. At family dinners, he compared his achievements. It was like his mind had built a small habit, a habit of measuring himself against everyone around him. And breaking that habit felt impossible. One evening, as he sat by the window with a cup of tea, he whispered, "Why do I do this? Why do I keep fighting a battle that I can never win?" Soft pause, calm background music fades slightly. That night, he remembered something his grandmother used to say: "Ethan, flowers don't compare with each other. They just bloom." He smiled at the memory. But a part of him still didn't believe it. He thought, sure, that sounds nice. But people aren't flowers. We have goals, we have careers, we have dreams. And yet, deep inside, he felt there was some truth in those words. The next day at work, his manager announced a team project. Everyone would work together to create a new marketing plan. Ethan was excited. He liked creative projects, but he also felt that old nervous feeling creeping back. When they started discussing ideas, Daniel, the same colleague who got the promotion, spoke confidently. He shared his opinions with energy, and everyone nodded and praised him. Ethan wanted to speak too, but he held back. His mind whispered, "Your idea isn't as good. Don't embarrass yourself." So he stayed quiet. As the meeting ended, Ethan walked back to his desk feeling invisible. No one had said anything bad about him, but his own thoughts were loud enough to make him feel small. Have you ever felt that too? You're in a room full of people, but your own mind becomes your enemy? You want to speak, to share, to shine, but something holds you back? That something isn't fear of others. It's fear of not being enough. And that's what Ethan felt every single day. That weekend, he decided to go hiking. He needed fresh air. The mountain was quiet, covered in green trees and golden sunlight. As he walked up the path, he met an old man sitting by the side of the trail, painting. The old man greeted him kindly. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Ethan smiled and nodded. "It really is." He looked at the man's painting. It was simple, not perfect, but full of life. Colors danced across the canvas. Ethan said, "I wish I could paint like that." The man laughed softly. "You can. Just paint." Ethan replied, "No, I wouldn't be good enough." The old man looked at him, his eyes kind but strong. He said, "Who told you that you have to be good to begin?" Ethan stayed quiet. The man continued, "Do you see that mountain? It doesn't ask if it's tall enough. It just grows. Something about those words stayed in Ethan's heart. He thanked the man and continued walking, but now each step felt different, lighter somehow. That night, when he returned home, Ethan sat at his desk again. He opened a new notebook and wrote just one sentence. "Who told me I have to be good to begin?" He looked at that line for a long time. And then, slowly, he began to write about his day, the silence, the hike, the old man, the painting. He wasn't writing for success or attention. He was writing for himself. And for the first time in years, his words felt real. A few days later, something small but powerful happened. At work, during another meeting, the team was struggling with a slogan idea. Everyone was quiet. And then, Ethan felt that small voice again, not the voice of doubt, but the voice of courage. He took a breath and said, "What if we tried something simpler? Something that sounds more human?" Everyone turned to look at him. For a moment, he felt nervous. Then Daniel smiled and said, "Actually, that's a good idea." The manager nodded. "Yes, let's try that." That was it. Just one small sentence. But to Ethan, it felt like climbing a mountain. Because for the first time, he had spoken not to be better than others, but to share what he believed. Later that night, as he walked home, Ethan felt a quiet happiness inside. He realized something. Confidence doesn't always come with loudness or perfection. Sometimes it begins with one small, honest moment when you stop comparing and simply try. He smiled as he looked up at the evening sky. It wasn't full of stars yet, but he knew they were coming. We often think confidence is something we must earn, after success, after approval, after others say we're good enough. But the truth is, confidence grows from within, when we stop asking permission to be ourselves. Ethan was beginning to understand that. But his journey wasn't over. The real test would come soon, when he faced a situation where comparison would return stronger than ever. Stay with me. In the next part of the story, we'll see how Ethan faces his biggest challenge, a moment that will test everything he's learned so far. A moment where he'll have to choose, will he compare or will he grow? Because sometimes, the greatest battle happens not outside, but inside our own mind. The storm of comparison. It was late autumn. The trees had started to change color, gold, red, brown, and the air felt cooler now. Ethan's days had become quieter, more peaceful. He was speaking up more at work, writing again at night, and even smiling more often. But peace doesn't always last forever. Sometimes, life sends a small storm just to see how strong you've become. One Monday morning, Ethan arrived at the office early. He felt good, confident, ready. That day, the company had invited all teams to present their creative work for a big campaign. It was a friendly competition, and Ethan's group had worked hard. He had even helped design part of the presentation. It was simple, emotional, and full of heart, just the way he liked it. When the meeting started, teams went one by one. Some were funny, some serious, some bold. And then came Daniel's team, the one that had won several times before. Their presentation was perfect, smooth, colorful, fast. The audience clapped loudly. Even Ethan found himself impressed. Then it was his team's turn. They spoke with passion. Their message was honest and real. When they finished, people clapped politely, but not loudly. Not like before. Ethan smiled, but inside, a small voice whispered again, "You're still not as good as them." That single thought hit him like cold rain. It didn't matter that he'd tried, that he'd spoken, that he'd grown. The comparison monster was back. All day, he kept thinking about it. Every compliment he heard felt weaker than every applause Daniel received. Every small success of his own felt smaller when he saw someone else doing better. By the time he got home, that quiet voice of doubt had grown loud again. He sat at his desk, staring at his notebook, but couldn't write a single word. He whispered to himself, What's the point? No matter how hard I try, someone is always better. And then, he stopped. He stared at those words. Because they sounded familiar, too familiar. They were the same words he used to tell himself months ago. The same words that had once trapped him in silence. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Soft piano note fades in. This was it, the real battle. Not against Daniel, not against the team, not even against success. But against that old habit, the habit of comparison. The next day, Ethan met Sarah again for coffee. She noticed his tired eyes and asked softly, "Rough week?" He nodded. "We had that project thing. Daniel's team did amazing. Ours was okay, I guess." Sarah tilted her head and smiled. "You mean yours was different?" He looked confused. "Different?" She nodded again. "You always see the world like it's a race. You think if someone's ahead, you must be behind. But it's not a race, Ethan. It's a garden. Everyone blooms differently." Her words reminded him of his grandmother again. Flowers don't compare. They just bloom. He smiled weakly and said, "It's hard, you know, not to compare." Sarah nodded. "Of course it's hard. But you can practice. Start small. When you see someone doing well, instead of thinking, 'Why not me?' think, 'Good for them, and I'm still growing.'" Ethan thought for a moment. Good for them. I'm still growing. He repeated it slowly in his mind. That small sentence felt warm, like a light in the middle of a dark tunnel. That night, Ethan sat again with his notebook. He wrote down 2 sentences. Comparison is a habit. Growth is a choice. Then he made a promise to himself. Every time he caught his mind comparing, he would remind himself, "I'm still growing." A week later, another surprise came. Daniel, the same colleague who always seemed confident, came to Ethan's desk. He looked nervous. "Hey, Ethan," Daniel said. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," Ethan replied. Daniel sat down and said quietly, "You know, everyone thinks I'm confident, but honestly, I always feel like I'm faking it. Sometimes I see how calm you are, and I think, I wish I could be like that." Ethan was shocked. He laughed a little. "You? You wish to be like me?" Daniel smiled. "Yeah. You always look peaceful, even when things are tough." Ethan didn't know what to say. He realized that even the people we compare ourselves to might be comparing themselves to us. That moment changed something inside him. He felt compassion not only for Daniel, but for himself too. He thought, maybe everyone is fighting the same silent battle, the battle of comparison. From that day, Ethan stopped trying to be the best. Instead, he focused on being better. Better than yesterday. Kinder than before. More patient with himself. He began to wake up each morning, look into the mirror, and say softly, "I'm not behind. I'm becoming." And slowly, that became his truth. Weeks passed. One morning, while walking to work, Ethan saw the old man from the mountain trail again, sitting on a bench, painting another landscape. Ethan smiled and walked over. "Still painting?" he asked. The man looked up and grinned, "Still growing." Ethan laughed. "Yes, still growing." They both smiled, no comparison, no competition, just 2 people creating, existing, living their own pace. We often forget this simple truth. Everyone's story moves at a different speed. Some people bloom early. Some people bloom late. But in the end, every flower still reaches the sun. So, don't rush. Don't compare. Your time will come not when you're better than others, but when you finally understand that you never needed to be. Ethan learned that day that comparison is not just a habit, it's a choice. And when you stop choosing comparison, stay with me. In the next part, we'll see how Ethan finally discovers true self-confidence, not from praise or success, but from self-acceptance and purpose. He will face one last challenge, and from it, you'll learn how to build your own quiet, unshakable confidence, step by step, in simple English. The light of self-confidence. The next few weeks passed quietly for Ethan. Something inside him had started to change, but it was not loud, not fast, not bright. It was slow. It was soft. It was like the way morning light slowly enters a dark room, quietly but surely. Every morning, when he looked in the mirror, he didn't feel perfect. He didn't feel strong. But he felt stable. He felt more like himself, and less like the shadow of someone else's life. He no longer spent hours scrolling through the lives of people he barely knew. He no longer asked himself, "Why not me?" Instead, he asked, "What can I do today to grow, even a little?" His confidence was not a loud voice shouting, "I'm the best." It was a gentle whisper saying, "I'm trying." And that whisper was enough to move him forward. One afternoon, while walking home from work, Ethan passed by a small community center. A sign outside read, "Storytelling Night, Share Your Journey." He stopped. He didn't know why, but the sign pulled his attention like a magnet. Storytelling. Sharing. Journeys. He had been writing in his notebook for weeks now, small thoughts, fears, tiny moments of growth. He wondered, could I share something? Could I talk in front of people? His heart began to beat a little faster. The old nervousness returned, whispering, "You? Tell a story?" Who would listen? He turned to walk away. But then he heard another voice, softer, gentler, familiar. "Everyone blooms differently. You're still growing." He took a deep breath. And for the first time, he walked inside. The room was simple, wooden chairs, warm lights, a small microphone at the front. People were laughing quietly, drinking tea, waiting for the event to start. Ethan sat in the back corner, heart shaking a little, fingers nervous. He listened to the first storyteller, a young woman sharing how she moved to the city alone. Then a student spoke about exam pressure. Then an old man talked about losing his job and finding a new dream. Ethan watched them and realized something important. No one was perfect. No one was a professional speaker. Each person was simply sharing a piece of their life, honest, imperfect, real. And the audience. They listened with kindness. No comparing. No judging. Just human connection. When the host asked if anyone else wanted to share, Ethan felt his heart jump. His hand slowly lifted, not high, not confidently, but enough. The host smiled warmly. "Please come up." As he walked to the front, his mind filled with fear. His legs felt weak. His hands were shaking. He thought, what if I make a mistake? What if I forget? What if they don't like it? But he stood there anyway. He looked at the audience. Not many people, maybe 20. Some smiled. Some waited patiently. All looked open and kind. He took a breath. And then, he began. Ethan didn't tell a big, dramatic story. He didn't talk about success or achievement. He told a simple story about comparing himself to others, about feeling behind, about the day he met the old man painting on the mountain, and about how he began to grow again, quietly, slowly, gently. As he spoke, something surprising happened. His voice, at first shaking, slowly became steady. His breathing relaxed. His words flowed softly, naturally, like warm water. People listened with full attention. No one looked bored. No one looked confused. Some people even nodded, as if they understood exactly what he meant. And when he reached the end, he said, "I'm still learning. I'm still growing. And maybe that's okay." The room was silent for a moment. Then the audience clapped, warm, sincere, kind. Ethan felt something rise in his chest, a gentle, glowing feeling. Not pride, not ego, but something deeper. It was confidence. Real confidence. The kind that doesn't compare, doesn't compete, doesn't scream. The kind that simply says, you showed up. You tried. You were yourself. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt proud of simply being Ethan. After the event, several people came to him. One said, "Your story felt like my story. Thank you for sharing." Another said, "I needed to hear that today." Someone else added, "I thought I was the only one who feels behind." Ethan looked at them and realized something beautiful. We all walk around thinking others are perfect. But deep inside, many of us carry the same fears, the same doubts, the same silent battles. And when someone speaks honestly, it makes everyone feel less alone. On his way home that night, Ethan felt a calm happiness around him. The street lights glowed softly. The air was cool. His steps felt lighter than ever. He stopped by a small bridge and looked at the water below, dark, peaceful, moving slowly. He smiled and whispered to himself, "I'm not who I was." And it was true. He wasn't the boy staring at his phone. He wasn't the man afraid to speak. He wasn't the person who believed he was behind everyone else. He was someone who had learned to listen to his own pace, his own growth, his own journey. And that was enough. The next morning at work, something unexpected happened. His manager approached him and said, "Ethan, I heard you shared a story at the community event last night. Someone from our office was there. They said you spoke beautifully." Ethan felt shy but grateful. The manager continued, "We're starting a new creative project next month, and I want you to be part of the idea team. I think your voice could add something unique." Ethan nodded slowly. His heart felt warm. Not because he was better than others, but because he was being trusted for being himself. That felt like true success. Ethan's story teaches us something important. Confidence is not a gift. It's not something given to you by other people. It doesn't appear when you win, or when others clap, or when you look perfect. Confidence grows when you stop running someone else's race. When you stop thinking you're behind. When you stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Confidence begins the moment you say, "I'm still growing." And that's enough for today. Everyone blooms differently. Everyone grows at their own speed. And your story, just like Ethan's, is moving exactly the way it should. Comparison is loud. But confidence is quiet. And in that quiet, you will find your true strength. The moment that breaks you and builds you. And now, my friend, we move into a moment that almost everyone faces at some point in life. A moment when you feel small, when you feel slow, when you feel behind, when you feel like the whole world is running faster than you. Maybe you felt this before. Maybe you're feeling it right now. So listen slowly and stay with me, because this chapter will help you breathe again. I remember a boy named Samir. Not famous. Not rich. Not a genius. Just a normal boy who wanted a better future. He lived in a small room with a window that showed nothing but the wall of the next building. Every morning, he woke up with the same question in his heart. Why am I not good like others? He never told anyone, but he compared himself every day. When he walked to school, he compared the shoes he wore with the shiny shoes of others. When he opened his notebook, he compared his handwriting with the perfect handwriting of the girl next to him. When the teacher asked a question, he compared his slow thinking with the fast answers of other students. Maybe you know this feeling. Maybe you also look at someone and think, they're better. I am behind. And sometimes, this small voice in your mind becomes so loud that you feel tired even before you begin your day. One afternoon, something happened to Samir that changed him forever. The school was having a big competition. It was not a test. It was a presentation day. Students had to stand on the stage and speak in front of everyone. Some students practiced for weeks. They had big posters, colorful charts, and beautiful slides. But Samir, he had only a small paper with a few lines he wrote the night before. And even those lines were full of crossed-out words and mistakes. When his turn came, his heart was shaking. His hands were cold. And the worst part? Right before he walked to the stage, he heard someone behind him whisper, "He can't do it. He is too shy." Another student said softly, "He doesn't speak like us. He will forget everything." And at that moment, he believed them. He walked to the front. He looked at the teacher. He looked at the big room. He saw the eyes of everyone watching him, and his mind went completely blank. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Not one. His legs felt weak. His face felt hot. And finally, after 10 long seconds of silence, the teacher said gently, "It's okay, Samir. Maybe next time." He walked back to his seat, but he didn't feel like walking. He felt like falling. His heart was heavy. His throat was tight. And he thought, they were right. I am not good. I can't do anything. My friend, maybe you also had a moment like this. A moment when people did not believe in you. A moment when you failed in front of others. A moment that made you want to hide from the world. A moment that made you compare yourself and say, others are better than me. But wait, this is not the end. This is only the break before the rise. That day after school, Samir went home slowly. He didn't eat. He didn't talk to anyone. He sat near the small window and looked at the wall outside. And he cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet tears that fall when you feel lost. After some time, he heard a knock on his door. It was his grandfather. A calm, gentle man with old eyes and a soft smile. He entered the room, sat beside Samir, and asked, "Why are you sad, my boy?" Samir didn't want to talk. He just said, "I am not like others." His grandfather listened. He didn't correct him immediately. He didn't give a long speech. He didn't say, "Be strong," or "Don't worry." He simply asked one question, a question that will stay in your heart today. Why do you think you must be like others? Samir looked confused. He said, "Because they can do better." His grandfather nodded slowly and said, "Yes, they can. But can they be you?" Samir didn't answer. Then the old man placed his hand on Samir's shoulder and said softly, "Listen to me. If a flower tries to look like another flower, it will stop growing. A rose never tries to become a sunflower. A sunflower never tries to become a rose. And you must never try to become someone else. Your path is not their path. Your time is not their time. Your story is not their story." And then he said something even more powerful. If you compare yourself every day, you will forget your own gift. When Samir heard these words, something inside him moved. A small light. A small hope. A small beginning. He asked, "But what is my gift?" His grandfather smiled. "You will find it only when you stop looking at others and start looking at yourself." And that moment, my friend, was the moment that changed everything. Samir didn't suddenly become strong. He didn't become confident in one day. But he made one small decision, a decision that you can also make right now as you listen. He decided to focus on his own steps. Not big steps. Not fast steps. Just small steps. His own steps. And this is where the real story begins. The slow rise begins. The next morning came softly, like a quiet new chance. The sun was not too bright. The birds were not too loud. And Samir woke up feeling a little different, not stronger, not braver, just lighter. A small part of him remembered his grandfather's words. If a flower tries to look like another flower, it will stop growing. That line stayed in his mind like a soft whisper. He didn't know what to do with it yet, but he carried it with him, like a small seed in his pocket. When he walked to school, he felt something unusual. He looked at the people passing by, but this time, he didn't compare himself to them. The girl with the perfect handwriting? He didn't look at her notebook. The boy who always spoke fast in class? He didn't watch him with fear. For the first time, he looked straight ahead, at his own path, at his own steps. And that simple change made him feel calm. In the classroom, the teacher announced, "We will be doing another presentation next month. You will all prepare again." Some students groaned. Some smiled. Some were excited. But Samir didn't feel scared this time. He just thought, this time, I will try. Not to be the best. Not to be like others. Just to be better than yesterday. And that kind of decision, my friend, is the strongest kind of courage. Not loud courage. Not dramatic courage. But gentle courage that quietly says, I will try again. That afternoon, when Samir returned home, he took out a notebook. It was old. The cover was torn. But he opened it anyway. He wrote only one sentence. I will grow slowly. He didn't write more. He didn't need to. For the first time, he wasn't angry at his mistakes. He wasn't embarrassed about his slow progress. He was learning to be patient with himself, and patience is one of the most beautiful kinds of strength you can have. The next day, he practiced speaking, but not for the whole school. Not for the teacher. Not for the competition. He practiced for himself. He stood in front of the mirror, looked at his own reflection, and tried to speak one line from his paper. His voice was shaking. His hands were shaking. But he said the line anyway. Then he said it again. And again. Not perfectly. Not confidently. But honestly. This went on for days. Some days he improved. Some days he felt stuck. Some days he even thought, maybe I will never get better. But he continued because he remembered what his grandfather said. You will find your gift only when you stop looking at others and start looking at yourself. And slowly, very slowly, he started seeing small changes. His voice became a little clearer. His fear became a little smaller. His English became a little more natural. These changes were tiny, so tiny that other people might not notice them. But he noticed them, and that made all the difference. One evening, his grandfather found him practicing again. The old man stood at the door, watching quietly with a proud smile. He didn't interrupt. He didn't correct him. When Samir finished, his grandfather simply said, You see, the flower is growing. And Samir smiled, not because he was perfect, but because he was better than yesterday. Sometimes, my friend, you might want to change your life fast. You might want to be confident tomorrow, fluent next week, successful next month. But life doesn't always work like that. Growth is slow. Confidence is slow. Learning is slow. And slow is not bad. Slow means steady. Slow means real. Slow means strong. You don't have to run. You don't have to catch up with others. You just have to keep walking on your own path. Just like Samir. Weeks passed, and the presentation day came again. The classroom was full of energy. Students were fixing their posters. Some were practicing lines. Some were comparing notes. But Samir stood in the corner, holding a small paper and smiling. He didn't feel nervous like last time. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't scared of being judged. He wasn't thinking about others at all. And then one of them pointed at Samir and joked, What about him? He probably doesn't even know what he wants. They laughed. And for a moment, Samir felt that old heaviness return. That old voice whispering, Look, they are ahead. You are behind. His heart dropped. He looked down at his food, suddenly not hungry anymore. But then, something new happened. Instead of believing the voice, instead of comparing again, instead of feeling small, he closed his eyes for a moment and remembered his grandfather's words, Your path is not their path. Your time is not their time. He took a slow breath. And for the first time in his life, he replied with calmness. He looked at the group and said, I will know when it's my time. They stopped talking. Not because they agreed. Not because they understood. They just didn't expect someone quiet like Samir to speak with such peace. Later that day, when he reached home, He told the whole story to his grandfather. The old man listened with a warm smile and asked, "And how did it feel when you said that?" Samir thought for a moment. Then he said, "It felt true." His grandfather nodded. "Exactly. Because some people run fast. Some people walk slow. Some people stop for a while. Some people begin late. And all of that is okay." He stood up, walked to the window, and pointed outside. "Look at the sky. Do all the birds fly at the same speed? No. Do they leave the nest on the same day? No. Do they all reach their destination at the same time? No. But still, every bird reaches where it needs to be." Samir listened carefully. His grandfather continued, "And you, my boy, are like those birds. You don't need to follow anyone. You don't need to copy anyone. You don't need to reach quickly. You just need to reach honestly." And with that, something opened inside Samir, a new understanding, a new kind of freedom. He realized that he was never behind. He was simply on his timeline. The world made him think he was slow. But in reality, he was just moving at his own natural pace. And you, my friend, are the same. Maybe you think you are late in learning English. Maybe you think everyone else is ahead. Maybe you think life is moving too fast and you can't catch up. But listen carefully. You are not late. You are not slow. You are not behind. You are learning at the exact speed that is right for you. Every person blooms at a different time. Every seed grows when it's ready. Every story unfolds at its own pace. Your story is not smaller than others. It is simply different. And different does not mean wrong. Different does not mean weak. Different does not mean less. Different means unique. Different means special. Different means yours. The next morning, something beautiful happened. Samir woke up earlier than usual. The city outside was still quiet. Only a few sounds of life moved in the distance. He sat near the window, holding his notebook, and wrote a sentence he never thought he would believe one day. "I am not in a race." He closed the notebook slowly and smiled to himself. It was a small smile, but it came from a deep place, a place of acceptance. Today, he didn't want to be faster. He didn't want to be perfect. He didn't want to be like others. He just wanted to grow in his own way, in his own time. And my friend, maybe you need to hear this too. Your time will come. Your moment will arrive. Your confidence will grow. Your English will improve. Your life will open, slowly, beautifully, naturally. The day you finally see your own strength. And now, my friend, we move into a moment that many people experience, but very few notice. It is the moment when you don't just hear that you are improving, you feel it. A quiet moment. A soft moment. A moment that changes something inside you forever. Weeks passed. And slowly, day by day, Samir continued growing quietly, gently, without noise, without showing off. Every night he practiced speaking a few sentences. Sometimes he used the mirror. Sometimes he talked to the empty room. Sometimes he just whispered while sitting on his bed. And even though he didn't realize it, something was changing. His voice was becoming steady. His mind was becoming clear. His fear was becoming smaller. But he didn't notice it. Until one day, something unexpected happened. It was a normal school morning. The classroom smelled like chalk and old wooden desks. Students were chatting loudly, laughing, complaining about homework. Samir was sitting at his desk, quietly reading a simple English story his teacher gave him. Suddenly, a girl named Rena walked up to him. She was one of the students who always spoke confidently, always answered quickly, always looked like she knew everything. She stood near his desk and said, "Hey, Samir, can you help me with this sentence?" Samir looked up surprised. "Help? Him? Why?" She held out her notebook and said, "I don't understand this line. Can you explain it?" He stared at the page. The sentence wasn't very hard, but he never imagined someone would ask him for help. His heart beat fast. His hands felt cold. But then, his mind did something special. It remembered. It remembered all the practice he did, all the slow reading, all the careful speaking, all the quiet nights. And because of that, the words came naturally. Samir explained the meaning of the sentence, simply, clearly, calmly. Rena listened. She nodded. She smiled. Oh, that makes sense. Thank you. And she walked away. Just like that. Not a big moment. Not a dramatic moment. Not a loud moment. But a true moment. A real moment. A life-changing moment. Because for the first time ever, someone saw strength in him that he didn't see in himself. Samir sat there quietly. But inside, his heart was glowing. A warm feeling spread through him. Not pride. Not ego. Just recognition. He realized something powerful. He was improving. He was growing. He was becoming someone he never thought he could become. It wasn't fast. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Later that day, he told his grandfather what happened. The old man smiled a deep, gentle smile and said, "You see? Others can see your light even before you do." Samir sat beside him, feeling quiet but full. "But I didn't know I could explain something so easily," he said softly. His grandfather looked at him warmly and replied, "That's because confidence doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives slowly, like the sunrise. You don't see it at first. But one day, you look around, and everything is brighter." Samir looked down at his hands, the same hands that used to shake when he held a paper. Now they felt steady. Not perfect, but steady. His grandfather continued, "The problem is, you were too busy comparing your journey with other people's journeys. So you couldn't see your own progress." The words landed in Samir's heart like rain on dry soil. "My boy," his grandfather said softly, "listen carefully. The person you were yesterday is the only person you should compare yourself with." And that sentence changed everything. That evening, Samir took out his old notebook again. The same notebook with the torn cover, the same notebook that carried his fears, his mistakes, his hopes. He opened it and wrote, "Today, I was better than yesterday." He closed the notebook slowly. He touched the cover with gentle fingers. He smiled a quiet smile. Because today, he didn't just grow. Today, he saw his growth. And that, my friend, is one of the most beautiful feelings in life. Maybe you have moments like this too. Small moments where you did something you could not do before. Moments you forget to celebrate. Moments where you don't realize that you are actually becoming stronger. Maybe you understand something in English you couldn't understand last year. Maybe you speak a little more clearly than last month. Maybe you listen a little better than last week. Maybe you believe in yourself a little more than yesterday. And you don't notice it, but the people around you do. You shine more than you think. You grow more than you know. You are becoming someone beautiful, slowly, gently, quietly. When you stop competing, life opens for you. And now, my friend, we enter one of the most important chapters of this story. It is the moment when Samir finally learns something that many people never discover in their whole life. It is the moment he understands that real confidence comes when you stop competing with the world and start competing only with who you were yesterday. The next week began quietly. The days felt normal, simple, calm. But something inside Samir was different now. He was not walking faster. He was not speaking loudly. He was not trying to impress anyone. But he moved with a new energy, a new peace, a new strength. For the first time, he didn't look at someone and think, "They are better." He looked at someone and thought, "They are on their path. I am on mine." And that simple change made his whole world feel lighter. In English class, the teacher introduced a new speaking activity. Students had to form small groups and practice a conversation. Before, this kind of activity made Samir shake with fear. His throat would close. His mind would freeze. He would listen to other students speak quickly and think, I can never speak like them. But this time, something strange happened. He didn't compare. He didn't panic. He didn't hide. He just breathed slowly and focused on his own voice. When his turn came, he spoke simply. He didn't use big words. He didn't try to sound perfect. He didn't copy anyone's style. He used his own simple English, his own slow rhythm, his own natural tone. And, surprisingly, the other students listened. One boy said, "Your pronunciation is getting better." A girl said, "You are clearer now." The teacher smiled and said, "Good progress, Samir. Keep going." Their words didn't make him proud. Their words didn't make him arrogant. Their words made him calm. Because now he understood something important. People respect growth, not speed. People respect honesty, not perfection. People respect effort, not comparison. Later that day, something interesting happened. During lunch break, a group of boys were arguing about who was the smartest in the class. Some said, "I get the best marks." Others said, "I always answer first." Some said, "I never make mistakes." Samir watched quietly. And for the first time, he didn't feel the urge to join the competition. He didn't feel the need to defend himself. He didn't care about winning or losing. He realized something powerful. When you stop competing with others, your mind finally becomes free. And freedom, my friend, is the birthplace of confidence. He walked away from the loud argument and went to sit under a tree in the school courtyard. The breeze was soft. The leaves moved gently. And as he sat there in silence, he thought about his journey so far. How he used to compare every day. How he used to feel small around others. How he used to think he was slow and behind. But now, everything felt different. He wasn't faster. He wasn't louder. He wasn't perfect. He was simply peaceful. Just then, Rena, the girl he helped earlier, walked by and stopped near him. "Why aren't you with them?" she asked. Samir smiled softly and said, "I don't need to compete." She looked at him, surprised by his answer, and said, "You know, that's a smart thing to say." Samir shrugged gently. "I just want to be better than I was yesterday." Rena thought for a moment and then said, "That's what real confidence is." And she walked away. Those words stayed in Samir's heart. Real confidence. Not fake confidence. Not loud confidence. Not confidence that needs approval from others. But confidence that grows from inside. When he went home that evening, his grandfather was sitting in the courtyard, drinking tea and watching the sky change colors. Samir sat next to him and said, "I think I understand something today." His grandfather smiled. "And what is that, my boy?" Samir said softly, "I don't need to compete with anyone." The old man nodded slowly, with pride in his eyes. You have learned one of life's greatest lessons." He touched Samir's hand gently and said, "When you stop competing, you stop comparing. And when you stop comparing, you finally start living." Samir looked at the sky. The colors were warm, soft orange, gentle pink, quiet gold. And he whispered, "I feel free." His grandfather replied, "Freedom begins in the mind, not in the world." That night, Samir wrote in his notebook, "I am walking my own path. I am not in a race. I don't need to be like others. I only need to be better than yesterday." He closed the notebook and pressed it against his chest for a moment. A quiet smile appeared on his face, because confidence was no longer something far away. It was inside him now, growing slowly, steadily, beautifully, just like your confidence, my friend. Every lesson you hear, every minute you listen, every step you take, you're becoming stronger. Not by comparing, but by growing. The power of small wins and why they matter so much. And now, my friend, we move into a chapter that is gentle but powerful, calm but life-changing. This is the part of the story where Samir begins to understand something that most people ignore in their busy lives. It is the part where he learns that small wins can change your whole future, even if the world never sees them. The next few days felt peaceful for Samir. He woke up each morning with a clear mind. He walked to school without worrying about who was faster or smarter. He entered the classroom without comparing himself to anyone. And, because his heart was calmer, he noticed something beautiful. He started enjoying the small things. He enjoyed reading one simple English paragraph without rushing. He enjoyed speaking one sentence clearly, even if it was short. He enjoyed understanding one new word. He enjoyed raising his hand even once. He enjoyed explaining something to a friend. Before, he wanted big results quickly. Before, he wanted to improve fast. Before, he wanted to reach the finish line. But now, he began to appreciate every tiny step. One afternoon, the English teacher gave the class a small assignment. Students had to write 3 sentences about their weekend. 3 simple sentences. Most students wrote very quickly. Some finished in 1 minute. But Samir didn't rush. He wanted to write clearly. Slowly. Carefully. He thought for a moment, then wrote. I woke up early on Sunday. I helped my mother clean the house. I felt happy. The teacher walked around checking everyone's notebook. When she reached Samir's desk, she paused. She looked at his sentences. And then she said softly, Good work. Your writing is more clear now. Just those 2 words, good work, made Samir feel like he could fly. Not because he was the best. Not because he wrote something amazing. But because he was better than before. He realized something important that day. Small progress is still progress. Small wins are still wins. Small steps still take you forward. That afternoon, when he returned home, he felt excited. Not loudly excited, but quietly happy. He ran to his grandfather and showed him the notebook. Look, he said proudly, the teacher said I'm improving. His grandfather smiled warmly and said, And how do you feel? Samir thought about it. Then he said, It feels good, different, soft, but strong. His grandfather nodded. Yes, that's the feeling of small victories. They do not shout. They whisper. But those whispers are powerful because they come from your heart. He touched Samir's notebook gently and said, You must celebrate small wins. Because big success is made of many small successes. Later that evening, Samir sat by the window again. The same window where he once cried. The same window where he felt lost. But tonight, it felt different. The air felt lighter. The world felt kinder. He opened his notebook and wrote, My small wins matter. He underlined the words carefully. Because they did. And they still do. That night, he closed his eyes and remembered something. The day he failed the presentation, he thought he was useless. The day he froze on the stage, he thought he had no talent. The day people laughed at him, he thought he would always be behind. But now, one small improvement filled him with hope. And hope, my friend, is stronger than fear. The next day, something even more interesting happened. During class, the teacher asked a difficult question. Everyone looked around, confused. But Samir knew the answer, not because he was smarter, but because he had practiced similar questions quietly at home. He slowly raised his hand. No one expected it. Not even Samir. The room fell quiet. The teacher nodded at him. Yes, Samir. He answered in simple English. Calmly. Gently. Clearly. The teacher smiled. Excellent. And the whole class turned and looked at him, not with judgment, not with surprise, but with respect. Respect. That was new. Samir felt a soft warmth inside his chest. He wasn't competing. He wasn't trying to be the best. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just being himself. And that, my friend, is when people truly notice you. After class, one boy walked up to him and said, "Hey, that was a good answer." Another said, "Your English is getting better." And Samir replied with a small smile, "Thank you. I'm trying every day." He didn't say, "I want to be like you." He didn't say, "I want to be the best." He simply said, "I'm trying every day." And that was enough. That evening, his grandfather looked at him with shining eyes and said, "You are growing beautifully." And Samir whispered back, "I can feel it." My friend, maybe sometimes you don't celebrate your small wins. Maybe you think small improvement is nothing. Maybe you think you need to be perfect to be proud. But listen, did you understand one new word today? That's a win. Did you listen longer than last time? That's a win. Did you speak one sentence without fear? That's a win. Did you try? That's the biggest win. Small wins build confidence slowly. Small wins create courage softly. Small wins make you stronger than you think. Just like Samir. The quiet victory inside you. When Daniel opened his eyes the next morning, something felt different. It was not a big thing, not something loud or bright. It was small, soft, almost like a quiet light inside him. He sat up slowly, rubbed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the heavy pressure of comparison sitting on his shoulders. The morning was peaceful. The sky was cloudy, but it felt friendly, like a calm blanket. The world looked the same, but he didn't. He took a deep breath and felt a little stronger, a little steadier, a little clearer. It was the feeling that comes when you stop fighting the wrong battles. It was the feeling that comes when you finally begin to see yourself. He walked to the small mirror on the wall of his room. Usually, he hated looking at himself in the morning because it always started the same cycle of thoughts. Why am I not like him? Why don't I look like that? Why am I not good enough? But today, when he looked into the mirror, he did not see the things he didn't like. He only saw Daniel. A real person. A human being learning, growing, trying. He gave himself a small smile. "Good morning," he whispered, almost laughing because it felt strange to speak kindly to himself. But it also felt good, surprisingly good. As he got ready for the day, he thought about everything the old man and the girl at the lake had said. He remembered the girl's soft, clear voice. "You are not late. You are on your way." He repeated the words in his mind like a gentle mantra, slow and calm. "On your way. On your way. On your way." The words planted themselves in his heart and stayed there like a seed that finally found the right place to grow. When Daniel stepped outside, the air was cool and carried the scent of morning flowers. He noticed something he had never truly noticed before. The world was full of different people walking at different speeds, carrying different stories, moving through different chapters of their lives. A man was walking quickly, checking his watch. A woman was taking slow, relaxed steps with a cup of tea in her hand. Two children were laughing loudly as they chased each other. Every person moved with their own rhythm. No one was trying to match anyone else. No one was comparing. They were simply living. Maybe he could do that too. On his way to work, he passed the bakery where he used to stop every morning. Today he didn't rush in. He stood outside for a moment and watched the baker sweeping the floor, humming softly to himself. The baker looked content. Simple. Peaceful. And Daniel realized something important. Confidence doesn't come from winning. It doesn't come from being better than someone else. It doesn't come from showing off. Confidence comes from being okay with yourself. It comes from seeing your own progress, even if that progress is slow. It comes from knowing your own story is worth living. He entered the bakery and ordered his usual coffee, but today he did something different. He looked at the baker and said, "You know, you always look so happy in the mornings." "It's nice to see." The baker laughed softly. My friend, happiness doesn't come from things outside. It comes from keeping your heart simple. When you know who you are, you don't worry about who others are. His words felt warm, like a hug wrapped in a sentence. Daniel nodded slowly. Yeah, he said, I'm learning. He walked to work with a lighter step. But of course, life is not perfect. When he arrived at the office, the same coworker, the confident, loud, successful one, walked past him. The same coworker who always made Daniel feel small. The same coworker he used to compare himself to every single day. But today, something surprising happened. Daniel didn't feel small. He didn't feel inferior. He didn't feel less than. He simply felt neutral. And this was new. This was huge. He realized that his coworker's life had nothing to do with his own. His coworker had his own story, his own struggles, his own wins and losses. And Daniel had his. For the first time, he didn't attach his worth to someone else's success. He didn't measure his life with someone else's ruler. He sat down at his desk, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, I am enough. I am on my way. The words calmed him. The words grounded him. The words made space in his mind where comparison used to live. And into that new space, confidence quietly stepped in. As the day went on, he worked with more focus. He talked with people more freely. He felt more present. He didn't try to be impressive. He didn't try to be better. He simply tried to be himself. And strangely, that made him feel stronger than he ever felt before. During lunch, he went outside alone and sat under a tree. He watched the sky. He watched the way the leaves moved. He watched the way the wind shifted. He felt peaceful. He felt steady. He felt like he was finally learning the language of self-confidence, the language that says, your life is not a race. Your journey is your own. You are exactly where you need to be right now. For the first time, he believed those words. When the workday ended, he didn't hurry home. He walked slowly, enjoying the rhythm of his steps. Everything around him felt like a quiet reminder of the lesson the lake had taught him. A man jogging, a woman walking her dog, a boy riding a bicycle, they were all moving at different speeds. And all of them were doing fine. He reached home feeling grateful, not for something big, but for something gentle and important. The discovery that comparing yourself to others is like walking with a heavy stone in your pocket. And letting go of comparison is like finally removing that stone. You feel lighter. You breathe easier. You see more clearly. That night, before sleeping, he whispered softly, "Thank you for teaching me not to compare myself anymore." He didn't know if he was thanking the old man, the girl, the lake, the day, or himself. Maybe all of them. But the gratitude felt real. He closed his eyes slowly, and the last thought before sleep touched him like a warm breeze. I am growing. I am learning. I am enough. And for the first time in his life, he believed it. The day everything quietly changed. The next morning, Daniel woke up before his alarm. It wasn't because he was stressed or worried. It was because he felt awake inside. Alive. Clear. His room was filled with a soft early morning light that made everything look peaceful. He sat up slowly, stretching his arms, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, calm energy. Not loud excitement. Not fear, but calm, steady energy. The kind that tells you the day will be good, not because of what happens, but because of who you are becoming. He brushed his teeth, washed his face, and looked at his reflection again. Yesterday, he saw himself without judgment. Today, he saw something more. He saw potential. He saw progress. He saw a person walking in the right direction, even if the steps were small and slow. He smiled at his reflection, but this time, the smile was not forced. It felt natural, like something growing from inside instead of something he had to pretend. While he ate breakfast, he remembered all the times he used to stare at other people on social media. He remembered comparing his morning to their perfect morning routines, his simple life to their fancy lives, his ordinary achievements to their shiny successes. But today, the thought didn't hurt. Today, he understood something very simple. People show the world their highlights, not their struggles. And comparing your real life to someone else's highlight is like comparing a seed to a full-grown tree. The seed is not less important. It's just in a different stage. He whispered softly, "I'm allowed to grow slowly." The words felt like a small gift he gave himself. When he arrived at work, he noticed something surprising. People were responding to him differently. Not because he changed his clothes. Not because he said something impressive. But because his energy was different. He greeted people with a real smile, small but real. He made eye contact. He didn't slouch. He didn't look away quickly. He carried himself like someone who was finally accepting his place in the world. And confidence, even quiet confidence, is something people can feel. One of his colleagues, a kind woman named Mia, looked at him and said, "You seem lighter today. Happier. Did something good happen?" Daniel laughed softly. "I think I just stopped carrying something heavy." She smiled, not fully understanding, but feeling the truth in his voice. Sometimes, you don't need to explain everything. People can feel energy even without details. Later that morning, Daniel was working at his computer when he heard loud claps and cheers from the other side of the office. The same coworker, the successful one, had just received another award. People were congratulating him. There was excitement, laughter, admiration in the air. A few months ago, this moment would have destroyed Daniel. He would have looked at the scene and thought, "Why not me? Why am I not this successful? Why can't I be like him? What's wrong with me?" But today, he felt something completely different. He felt nothing heavy. Instead, he just smiled quietly, happy for the coworker, and continued working on his own project. There was no jealousy in his chest, no pain in his stomach, no voice saying he wasn't enough. His heart did not sink. His mind did not twist. He simply acknowledged the moment and moved on. And that was when he realized something huge, something life-changing. When you stop comparing yourself to others, your success, comes back into view. Around lunchtime, his manager walked over to him. "Daniel," she said, "I looked at the report you made last week. It was very well done. Clear, simple, and thoughtful. I want you to help with a new project. I think you're ready." Daniel blinked in surprise. Him? Ready? A few months ago, he doubted everything about himself. And now, someone believed in him. And strangely, he didn't question it. He didn't think, "Maybe she's wrong." He didn't think, "Someone else would be better than me." Instead, he said the words calmly and confidently, "Yes, I can do it." The manager smiled. "Good. I like your attitude." The simple compliment warmed his heart. Not because it meant he was better than anyone else, but because it showed him something he had never noticed. Progress is quiet. Growth is gentle. Change happens slowly. Like sunrise, it doesn't make noise, but suddenly you see the light. He spent the rest of the afternoon working on the new project. And as he worked, he noticed something beautiful. He wasn't fighting with himself anymore. No negative voice. No heavy feeling. No comparison storm in his mind. Just work. Just focus. Just presence. When the day ended, he walked outside and saw the sky turning orange and soft pink. It looked peaceful, wide, and open, just like the way he felt inside. He decided to take the long route home. The streets were calm. Cars moved slowly. People walked with their own pace, their own problems, their own hopes. As he walked, he remembered the voice from the lake. The gentle girl's words, "Your journey is your own. You are not late." Every step he took now felt like a quiet answer to those words. On your way. On your way. On your way. He passed by the lake again, not to ask questions, but just to experience the calmness that helped change him. This time, he didn't see the old man or the girl. The lake was empty, quiet, peaceful. But he didn't need them anymore. He didn't need someone to tell him what he was worth. He didn't need a voice outside himself. Because now he carried that voice inside him. He sat near the water for a few minutes, watching the gentle waves. And then he whispered softly, "Thank you for helping me see myself." He didn't expect an answer. And he didn't need one. The lesson was already part of him. Before leaving, he looked over the water one last time and felt the truth settle into his heart like a calm breath. When you stop comparing yourself to others, your real life begins. And for the first time ever, Daniel felt like his real life was finally starting. The bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. The following day began with soft rain tapping gently on Daniel's window. It wasn't a storm. Not a loud kind of rain, just a quiet, steady rhythm like nature whispering, "Slow down. Listen. Feel." Daniel lay in bed for a moment, listening to the sound. Rain had always made him think. It reminded him that clouds don't stay forever, and neither do hard moments. The world changes, and so do we. He slowly got out of bed, feeling a calm warmth inside his chest. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper, acceptance. Acceptance of his path, his pace, his story. Acceptance of himself. Today felt like a bridge, a gentle crossing from who he used to be to who he was becoming. When he reached the kitchen, he made himself a cup of tea instead of rushing like he always used to. The steam rose slowly, curling in the air like a tiny dance. He held the cup in both hands, feeling the warmth, feeling present. The old Daniel would start the day with rushing thoughts of comparison, fear, worry. But today, the thoughts came slower, kinder, more patient. As he sipped the tea, he whispered, "I don't have to hurry. I don't have to be like anyone else." Saying it out loud made it feel real. Strong. True. He left for work with an umbrella, walking slowly through the cool, rainy morning. The sound of drops hitting the umbrella felt comforting, like the world was giving him a soft background melody. People hurried past him with their own umbrellas, their own plans, their own lives. Some walked quickly. Some walked slowly. Some looked tired. Some looked excited. And again, he noticed something he had not seen before. Everyone is carrying something invisible. Everyone is going somewhere. Everyone has their own chapter. And that simple truth made him walk even more gently. When he reached the office, something unexpected happened. His manager approached him and said, "Daniel, I'd like you to join a small meeting this afternoon. We want your ideas on the new project." His heart skipped for a moment, not in fear, but in surprise. Months ago, he would have thought, "Why me? Am I good enough? Someone else would be better." But today he only felt gratitude. He nodded and said, "Yes, of course," in a calm, confident tone. Not loud, not proud, just sure. As lunchtime arrived, Daniel went to the break room to warm his food. A coworker named Ethan, someone he used to compare himself to all the time, walked in. Usually, Daniel avoided talking to him because it made him feel inferior. But today, something was different. Daniel didn't feel small. He didn't feel behind. He didn't feel threatened. He just felt human. "Hey, Daniel," Ethan said casually. "I heard you're joining the meeting today." "That's great." Daniel smiled. A real smile. "Yeah, I'm looking forward to it." Ethan nodded. "You've been doing good work lately. Keep it up." Months ago, this comment would have made Daniel overthink for hours, wondering if it was true, if it was pity, if it was empty. But today, he simply accepted it. Because when you stop comparing, compliments no longer feel dangerous. They feel like gifts, not tests. After lunch, he sat at his desk and thought about the meeting. He didn't imagine competing. He didn't imagine showing off. He simply imagined sharing his ideas honestly. And that thought felt refreshing. When the time for the meeting came, the room was small and warm. A few people gathered around the table. Daniel took a seat quietly, listening first. As others talked, he realized something powerful. Confidence is not talking loudly. Confidence is listening deeply and speaking when your heart knows what to say. When it was his turn, he took a slow breath and spoke clearly. He kept his words simple, honest, and calm. He didn't try to sound smarter than he was. He didn't force anything. He just shared. And to his surprise, the others nodded. They agreed. They liked what he said. One person even added, "That's a helpful idea." Daniel felt something warm fill his chest. Not pride. Not ego. Just a simple truth rising inside him. When you stop comparing yourself to others, your voice becomes clearer. The meeting ended, and he walked back to his desk feeling lighter than usual. The rain outside continued, but the world inside him felt bright. As he worked, he realized he was living something he had never experienced before, a life without the constant noise of comparison. After work, when he stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was still gray, but it was a soft gray, calm, gentle, open. There was a faint rainbow stretching across the clouds. It wasn't bright or dramatic. It was subtle, almost shy, but beautiful. Daniel watched it for a long moment and smiled, because the rainbow felt like a symbol of his journey. A quiet reminder that after rain, after storms, after confusion, something soft and beautiful always appears. Not flashy, not loud, but real. He took the long way home again, walking beside the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the gray sky like a mirror. He didn't expect to see the old man or the girl. And he didn't. The lake was empty, still, silent. But in that silence, he felt their presence. Not like ghosts, but like lessons that stayed inside him. He sat on the same rock he sat on before and took a slow breath. The air smelled fresh, like new beginnings. He whispered softly, "I'm not the same person I was." Then after a pause, "And I'm glad." He looked at the water and saw his reflection, quiet, soft, almost blending with the lake. But this time, his reflection didn't feel wrong or weak or not enough. It felt like someone becoming whole. He wasn't finished growing. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't done learning. But he was on his way. And that was enough. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a sense of gentle excitement in his chest. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't dramatic. It was something soft but solid, like a quiet promise. When he opened his eyes, the sunlight was already touching the curtains, making the room warm and golden. He stretched slowly and felt something he hadn't felt in years: stability. A calm, confident stability. He sat at the edge of his bed and let his feet touch the floor. For a few seconds, he just breathed. In and out, in and out. Every breath felt like a message: you're changing. You're growing. Keep going. There was no rush. No comparison. No pressure. Only presence. Daniel got ready for the day more mindfully than usual. He brushed his teeth while humming a small tune. He combed his hair slowly, not checking for perfection but enjoying the simple act. He put on his clothes calmly, without that old feeling of "I need to look better than someone else." Today, he dressed for himself, not for approval, not for comparison, not to impress anyone. Just for himself. And that tiny change made him feel lighter. On his way to work, the street looked brighter. People passed him with their own expressions, their own problems, their own dreams. Some looked tired, some looked excited, some looked lost. Daniel watched them with new eyes. He didn't compare anymore. Instead, he felt connected. We are all trying, he thought. We are all on our own path. That thought made him feel part of something bigger, something human and kind. When he arrived at work, he felt the usual busy energy in the air. People typing, phones ringing, footsteps rushing. It used to overwhelm him. It used to make him feel slower, smaller, weaker. But not today. Today, he saw the office as a collection of people with different journeys, different levels, different strengths. And he was one of them, not behind, not ahead, just part of the world. As he sat at his desk, his manager approached again. But instead of a project assignment, she had something else in her hand. A small paper. "Daniel," she said with a warm smile, "I want you to present a short idea in tomorrow's team meeting." Daniel felt a small flutter inside his chest. Presenting? Him? The old Daniel would have panicked. He would have imagined himself failing. He would have compared himself to everyone else in the room. He would have said no. But the new Daniel took a gentle breath and said, "Okay, I'll do it." His manager nodded with approval. "I trust you." And for the first time, Daniel didn't think, "Why does she trust me?" He simply thought, "I trust me too." Later that day, during lunch, Daniel sat with Mia again. She noticed something in his face. "You look stronger today," she said with a curious smile. "Different." Daniel shrugged shyly. "I just feel good." "What changed?" she asked quietly. He paused, looked out the window, watched a bird fly across the sky. And then he answered with the simplest words, "I stopped trying to be someone else." Mia smiled gently as if she completely understood. "That's a powerful thing," she said. He nodded, feeling her words settle in his chest like truth. After lunch, he spent a little time preparing his idea for the next day. And something amazing happened. He didn't overthink. He didn't judge himself. He didn't compare his ideas to others. He simply worked, calmly, steadily, with a little confidence rising inside him like a soft flame. As the sun lowered in the sky and the workday ended, Daniel stepped outside and felt the warm afternoon air on his face. Everything around him seemed softer, easier, more open. And then something surprising happened. He saw his successful coworker, the one he always compared himself to, standing outside, talking with someone. Usually, Daniel would avoid walking near him because it made him feel lesser. But today, he took a deep breath and walked past confidently, not rushing, not hiding. And that coworker did something Daniel had never expected. He looked up and said, "Hey Daniel, I saw your idea in the meeting notes. It's really good." For a moment, Daniel froze, not from fear, but from shock. This man? Complimenting him? But then Daniel felt something even more surprising. He didn't feel intimidated. He didn't feel small. He didn't feel unworthy. He felt equal. "Thank you," Daniel replied softly, and this time, the words weren't shaky. They were strong, steady, grounded. The coworker nodded and returned to his conversation. Daniel walked away slowly, smiling. Because in that moment, he understood something he had never realized. The people he compared himself to were never above him. It was his own fear that put them higher. It was his own mind creating the distance. They were just people like him. He walked to the lake again after work, as if his feet naturally wanted to go there. The water shimmered under the late sunlight, glowing softly like silver. He sat down on the familiar rock and listened to the quiet sound of waves touching the shore. He closed his eyes and remembered the days he spent trapped in comparison. He remembered the heavy feeling, the sadness, the self-doubt. It all seemed so far away now, like a different life. A different version of him. And then he whispered, "I am becoming myself." He opened his eyes slowly, watching the water move with a gentle rhythm. He didn't rush the moment. He didn't try to force meaning. He simply existed peacefully, fully, without comparing. The old Daniel was fading. The new Daniel was growing. And the bridge between them, was this quiet acceptance. He stood up after a long while, feeling taller, not in height, but in spirit. He walked home with a calm strength in his steps, knowing deep inside he didn't need to be better than anyone. He only needed to be better than yesterday. And he was. Everything inside him whispered the same truth. This is your journey. Keep going. You're doing well. The next day arrived quietly, like a soft whisper instead of a loud announcement. Daniel woke up before the world outside was fully awake. The sky was still pale, the air cool, and the streets silent. He lay there for a moment, listening to his own breathing. And in that silence, he felt something gentle but powerful rising inside him, a sense of readiness. Today was the day he would present his idea in front of the team. A few weeks ago, this thought would have terrified him. His hands would shake. His mind would run wild with fear. He would imagine everyone judging him, comparing him, questioning him. But today, things felt different. The fear was there, yes, but it didn't control him. It didn't sit on his chest. It didn't push him down. It simply existed, small and soft, like a tiny reminder that he was human. Daniel sat up slowly and whispered to himself, "You can do this." His voice was calm, warm, steady. And for the first time, he believed those words. He got ready more carefully today, not to look impressive, not to compete, but to feel comfortable. A simple shirt, clean shoes, a quiet smile in the mirror. When he looked at his reflection, he didn't see someone trying to be perfect. He saw someone trying to be present. And that made him feel strong in a humble, honest way. On his way to work, he walked with a clearer mind. The world around him seemed softer, birds flying in the sky, people moving in their own rhythm, cars passing by slowly. Everything felt natural, balanced, real. He passed by a bus stop and saw a young boy tying his shoelaces slowly, concentrating deeply. The boy was not rushed, not comparing himself to other kids. He was simply doing his own small task with full focus. Daniel smiled at the sight. That boy reminded him of something important. Strength doesn't always look loud. Sometimes strength looks like quiet effort, one simple step at a time. When he reached the office, the usual energy filled the air, voices, footsteps, ringing phones. But instead of feeling lost in the noise, Daniel felt grounded. His heart beat steadily. He walked to his desk calmly and sat down. As the time for the meeting got closer, his mind tried to bring old fears. What if you make a mistake? What if someone says your idea is bad? What if you don't sound confident? But this time, Daniel didn't fight the thoughts. He didn't argue with them. He didn't let them grow. He simply took a slow breath and said in his mind, "It's okay to be nervous. Nervous means you care." And, just like that, the fear softened. When the meeting began, people took their seats around the large table. Daniel sat quietly, hands resting on his lap. He listened to others talk first, updates, numbers, plans. He felt his heart beat a little faster when his turn approached, but even that didn't bother him. It felt natural. Finally, the manager looked at him with a smile. "Daniel, would you like to share your idea now?" For half a second, the room felt too quiet, too focused, too bright. But Daniel straightened his back, took a calm breath, and began to speak. His voice was not loud. It was steady, simple, clear. He explained his idea slowly, using everyday language, making sure everyone understood. He didn't rush. He didn't overthink. He didn't pretend to be someone else. He spoke as himself, honest, calm, thoughtful. And the room listened. Daniel felt something warm growing inside him, confidence. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that tries to impress. No. This was the quiet, steady confidence that comes from doing something you once thought you couldn't do. When he finished, the manager said, "Thank you, Daniel. That was excellent." And in that moment, something shifted inside him. Not because he impressed them. Not because he did better than anyone else. But because he proved something to himself. He could stand, speak, and be heard without comparing himself to anyone. When the meeting ended, Daniel walked back to his desk with a soft smile. A few coworkers complimented him along the way. And this time, he accepted their words with ease. Not with fear. Not with doubt. But with calm appreciation. Later, during lunch, he sat by a window and looked outside. He noticed a small group of birds flying in the sky. Each bird moved at its own speed, yet they all traveled in the same direction. None of them tried to be first. None of them tried to be perfect. They simply flew. Daniel whispered softly, "That's what I want. To go at my own speed." In the afternoon, his manager approached his desk again. "Daniel," she said gently, "I'm really proud of your progress. I see your confidence growing. Keep going." Her words touched him deeply. Not because of praise, but because she saw something he had only recently begun to see in himself. He nodded with a grateful smile. "Thank you. I'm trying." After work, Daniel walked to the lake again. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The water reflected the colors like a dream. He stood there quietly, feeling the cool breeze on his face. And in that peaceful moment, he realized something beautiful. He wasn't the same person anymore. He wasn't chasing anyone. He wasn't comparing his journey to others. He was finally walking his own path at his own pace. He sat on the familiar rock and whispered to the lake, "I'm proud of myself." It felt strange to say, but it felt right. He stayed there until the sky turned darker, until the world around him became quiet. And then he stood up, feeling stronger, softer, and more himself than ever before. The journey wasn't over, but he was on it fully, confidently, peacefully.